Claire Morgan stepped off the transport ship and looked around the Academy docking bay. It was her first day at the Interstellar Peace Academy, where students from hundreds of worlds came to study. Some were here to learn science, others came for diplomacy, and many trained to be peacekeepers. Claire came alone, carrying only a small bag and her file from Earth. The docking bay buzzed with voices, but Claire said nothing. She walked past large alien beings with hard scales, long limbs, and glowing eyes. Some were tall like trees, others small but covered in sharp armor. Everyone seemed to notice her, but she didn't seem to notice anyone. Her steps were quiet and her eyes calm. In her first class, Claire sat near the middle of the room. It was a large hall, with desks in perfect rows. The walls were silver, the lights above white and cold. Screens showed galaxy maps and peace treaty texts. The room slowly filled with students. Some of them whispered they had heard a human was joining their class, but this one looked different. Claire didn't speak. She folded her hands on the table and waited. Then the Varric entered. They were Predator-class aliens, known for their strength and hunting skills. They looked like something from nightmares, with tall frames, long claws, and masks over their faces. When they walked into a room, most students looked down. But today, something strange happened. The first Varric warrior stepped toward an empty seat 2 rows from Claire. He paused, looked at her, and moved away. Another tried to sit in the row behind her, but changed his mind. One by one, they avoided the seats near her. Soon, a space of 10 feet formed around her desk, like an invisible wall. Professor Dalton walked in and looked around. He noticed the empty seats near Claire but said nothing. He began the lesson on interspecies trust building. Claire listened, eyes forward, silent. She took notes on her tablet, every word clear and clean. During the break, a student named Ethan came over. He was friendly, a human like Claire. He smiled and asked if she needed help finding the lunch hall. Claire shook her head. Her answer was polite but short. Ethan still walked with her, chatting about the academy. She nodded now and then, but said very little. Behind them, some of the Varric watched from a distance. One of them growled low, but did not move closer. Other students noticed this. Whispers started. Some said Claire had special training. Others said she was a test subject from Earth. No one really knew. Claire only listened. Later that day, during a team exercise, students had to form groups. Claire was assigned to Group 6. When the group gathered, the Varric member stepped back. He asked to switch groups. The instructor raised an eyebrow, but allowed it. Claire joined the task without complaint. She worked well, finishing her part quickly. Her group won the round. Still, the Varric kept their distance. By the end of the day, Claire had spoken less than 20 words, yet her presence left a strong mark. The alien students, known for fearlessness, chose to stay far from her. Even the boldest predators showed caution. That night, as lights dimmed in the academy halls, Claire stood by her window. She looked out at the stars, her face calm. In the silence, she seemed peaceful. But across the hall in their private rooms, the Varric spoke in low voices. One of them had seen something in her eyes. Not fire, not anger, but something colder. Something they did not understand. Claire closed her eyes and rested. She had done nothing unusual. No loud words, no sharp looks, no threats. Still, the predators had stepped away. It was only the beginning. Professor Dalton sat in his office late at night. His eyes moved across the screen, reading the report from Claire Morgan's first day. He read it twice, then again. There was nothing unusual in her actions. No rule broken, no strange event. Yet the report from the Varric group said they refused to share space with her. He frowned and leaned back. He had seen many students in his time, some loud and proud, others quiet and strong. But never had he seen someone cause such fear without saying anything at all. Dalton made a note to observe her in the coming days. The next morning, Claire entered the training hall. She wore the same gray uniform, neat and plain. Her steps made no sound on the steel floor. The other students were already gathered in small circles, waiting for their group tasks. As she approached, the groups moved slightly, opening space around her without speaking. Claire did not react. She joined her assigned group and waited. One of the alien students, a tall creature with 4 arms and glowing eyes, looked at her and shifted backward. Another human student, Lisa, noticed this and raised an eyebrow. They started the task, which was a team puzzle requiring trust and close work. Claire did her part quickly. She passed the tools and solved her section of the problem. Her movements were smooth and fast. She never asked questions, never gave commands. Still, the group followed her pace. After the session, Lisa walked beside her to the main hall. "You don't talk much," Lisa said, watching her. Claire looked at her and said, "Only when needed." "The Virik don't go near you," Lisa added. "I've never seen them act like that." Even the trainers noticed. Claire gave a small nod but said nothing more. In the observation room, Professor Dalton watched the footage. He paused the screen on Claire's face. There was no anger, no pride, just quiet control. The Virik warrior and her group had stepped away even when the task required close contact. The Academy had trained Predator-class species to be brave and bold. But next to Claire, they all changed. Later that day, the students were brought to the simulation chamber. It was a fake battlefield where teamwork and defense were tested. The system chose random pairs. Claire was paired with a Virik cadet named Jernok. The moment his name was called, Jernok looked around in shock. He made no move to approach. The instructor reminded him it was a test. Claire walked to the center without a word. She stood still, waiting. Jernok stepped forward slowly, eyes fixed on her. As he neared, he stopped. His legs locked. His hands trembled. The room went quiet. Her students watched from behind the safety glass. The instructor gave the signal to begin. Jernok took one step more, then stopped again. His breathing grew loud. Claire had not moved. Then Jernok turned away. "I cannot," he said, voice shaking. "I won't stand near her." The instructor ended the test. Jernok walked out, his head low. Claire followed without a word. The Academy buzzed with talk that night. Students from different planets spoke about the girl who made the hunters afraid. Some said she had hidden powers. Others said she came from a lost human program. But no one had proof. In the library, Ethan and Lisa met in a quiet corner. They had decided to find out more. They looked through Academy files, but found little. Claire's Earth file was locked. Her record before age 10 was missing. "Who is she?" Lisa asked. "Someone the Virik fear," Ethan replied. They didn't know that outside the library, a Virik elder had just sent a report back to his homeworld. It said one line, "The Silent One has arrived." That night, Claire sat in the garden alone. The stars above were bright. A soft wind moved through the trees. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly. Her face showed no joy, no worry, only quiet. Inside her mind, old memories stirred. Cold rooms, lights, voices behind glass. She let them pass, like shadows. She did not come to fight. She came to learn. But something inside her had never left. And now, the galaxy was beginning to feel it. The next day began with a strong wind blowing across the Academy grounds. The weather control system had failed for a few hours, letting natural air pass through. Students rushed to their morning training, holding on to coats and books. But Claire walked with the same calm steps as always, not slowed by the wind. Inside the training hall, the students stood in rows. Today's lesson was about field reaction and close-range defense. The task was simple. 2 students would face each other and act out a mock threat. The test was designed to measure response time and confidence. Claire stood at the back, waiting for her name. The instructor, a tall being from the Tarsus sector, read the names aloud. Jernok and Claire. A low murmur passed through the room. Jernok, the same Virik student who had refused to go near her, now had to face her again. He stepped forward slowly. His movements were sharp, but there was tension in his arms. Claire stepped forward without pause. They stood 10 feet apart. "Begin," the instructor said. Jernok took one step, then another. Claire did not move. Her eyes stayed on his, quiet and steady. As he raised his arm to act out a strike, he froze. Something in her look made him stop. His breath caught. He lowered his hand. "I cannot," he said again. "She is not right. I feel something. I cannot explain it." The instructor frowned. "It is only a test. She will not harm you." "It is not about harm," Jernok said. "It is something else." Claire said nothing. She stepped back and stood by the wall. The room stayed silent for a few moments. Later that day in the academy dining hall, the students talked. Some were afraid. Others were curious. Claire sat alone at a table in the corner, slowly eating. Few brave students walked by, looked at her, then left. No one sat beside her. In a private room, Professor Dalton met with the academy leader, Director Harrow. She did not do anything, Dalton said. No threat, no movement, no sound. Yet this keeps happening. We must find out why, Harrow replied. If she has a hidden power, we must know it. Dalton nodded. I will access her records again. But Earth sent her here with full approval. The file is locked even from our top level. Meanwhile, in another part of the academy, Ethan and Lisa continued their search. They had found something strange. An old Earth program with only 2 words, Project Silence. No full files, no pictures, only the name and a tag marked closed. Lisa leaned back in her chair. What if she is part of this Project Silence? Then maybe she's not just a student, Ethan said. The next morning, a new announcement was made. All students would take part in a group combat exercise on the academy field. Teams were formed by the system. Claire was placed in Team 9. Team 9 was made of different species, including another Vieric named Racker. When the team gathered, Racker stepped back at once. I will not work with her, he said. The instructor asked why. I do not feel safe, Racker said. She does nothing, yet I feel hunted. She is just a girl, the instructor said. Not to us, Racker answered. The exercise began. Claire stayed with her group but kept some distance. When they were attacked by drone bots, she moved fast and used the cover well. She gave no orders, but made sure each teammate stayed safe. After the test, the instructor gave the highest score to Team 9, even though one member had refused to work. Claire's silent help had kept the team together. That night, Claire walked through the garden again. The air was still. Lights from the academy windows glowed softly in the distance. She sat by the fountain and looked at her reflection. She thought about the tests, the looks, the distance the others kept. She did not ask for fear. She did not want it. But she had learned long ago that some things cannot be hidden. Behind her, in the shadows, another figure watched. A silent message was sent across the stars. The test is active. Subject remains under control, but the effect grows. Claire stood up and walked back to her room. She never looked behind her. She didn't have to. Somewhere deep inside, she already knew. Ethan and Lisa sat in the library long after most students had gone. They'd followed every link and file they could find, but nothing about Project Silence explained what Claire was. Lisa tapped the screen again and sighed. There has to be more, she said. Something hidden, something deep. Ethan leaned forward. We need help. They looked around the empty library, then walked to the far corner. There was one old station, unused and covered in dust. It was connected to the Academy's original network, the one from before the system upgrades. They powered it on. The screen flickered, and a strange voice spoke. Accessing restricted files. Name your query. Ethan looked at Lisa, then said, Project Silence, Earth origin, human subject. The voice replied, access granted. Partial data only. Lines of old text appeared. It told of a secret program made during Earth's last major war. It spoke of a plan to create soldiers who could stop enemies, not with weapons, but with presence. Subjects were trained to show no fear, no anger, no sound. Their presence alone would cause discomfort, confusion, even fear in hostile species. One line stood out. Only one subject reached full activation. Codename Echo. Lisa whispered, Echo ... Could that be Claire? Before Ethan could reply, the screen shut down. The voice said, trace detected. Exit now. They rushed out of the library. At the same time, in the upper levels of the academy, Director Harrow received a message from Earth. It was marked urgent. The message warned that Project Silence had been closed for a reason. The subject was not dangerous to humans, but to predator-class species. She could cause fear without action. This effect was not fully understood. The message ended with a short line. Monitor, but do not provoke.
Back in the training halls.
Claire continued her day like any other. She attended her classes, did her tasks, and stayed quiet. More students avoided her now. Even the curious ones kept their distance. In her tactics class, the lesson was about negotiation during crisis. Groups were given fake situations to solve with words, not force. Claire's group included a loud alien named Vexer, known for mocking humans. As the group discussed the plan, Vexer raised his voice. "You never speak? Are you better than us? Or just empty inside?" Claire looked at him. Her eyes were calm. She said nothing. Vexer smirked. "Say something. Show you belong here." Claire spoke one sentence. Her voice was clear and low. "I do not need to prove myself to you." Vexer went silent. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. He turned pale, stepped back, and left the group. The instructor saw everything but said nothing. The room stayed quiet after that. Later, in the tech lab, Lisa showed Ethan the name Echo again. "She has to be the one. They said only one subject worked. She makes predator types afraid." Ethan nodded. "But why send her here? Why now?" Maybe Earth wanted to test her in a safe place. Or maybe they knew she was different and wanted to hide her in plain sight. They didn't know that across the stars, a message had reached a private Earth station. A man named Marcus, a retired soldier, saw the alert. He had been part of the Project Silence staff long ago. He thought the program was gone forever, read the report, and saw Claire's name. He leaned back in his chair, eyes wide. "She survived," he whispered, "and she's active." Marcus knew what that meant. If her presence was growing stronger, more predator species would notice. Some would want to test her. Some would want to stop her. Back at the academy, Claire stood in the empty gym late at night. The lights were low. She stared at the wall, not moving. Her hands stayed at her sides. She remembered the white rooms, the training, the long hours of silence. She had passed every test, not with action, but with stillness. That was what made her Echo. That was what made her different. Now, the quiet was no longer just inside her, it was around her, growing. The predators could feel it. And soon, others would come. News of Claire's strange effect had spread beyond the academy. Some predator species began to send watchers, agents in disguise, who pretended to be visitors or guests. They came to see her with their own eyes. They stood at a distance during classes, training, and meals. But none of them dared get close. Inside the academy, the leaders gathered in the High Council room. Director Harrow sat at the front, with advisors and species representatives seated around the table. "Something must be done," said a tall creature with sharp horns. "This human girl is a threat. She does not attack, but her presence disturbs our kind," another alien added. "Our younger students refuse to attend class when she is present. This cannot continue." Professor Dalton stood to speak. "She has broken no rule. She speaks when spoken to, does her tasks, and harms no one. Fear is not her choice. Others choose to fear her. But if her effect grows," said one council member, "what then? What if her presence starts to affect more than just predator species?" Before any decision was made, a message arrived. A new species was on the way to the academy. They were called the Dravik, a strong and proud warrior race. They were not bound by the same agreements as the Virik. They followed their own code and respected only strength. When the Dravik ship landed, everyone felt the change. The ground shook, the air grew heavy. The Dravik leader, named Tharn, was taller than the others, covered in thick armor and armed claws. He said nothing as he entered the academy, but his eyes scanned everything. When he saw Claire from across the room, he stopped walking. She looked at him once, then turned away. She did not slow her steps. She showed no fear. Later that day, Tharn stood before the Academy Council. "I want to test her," he said. "I want to see what she is." Director Harrow answered, "This academy does not allow open battle without cause. She has broken no law." "She is a weapon," Tharn replied. "She is more dangerous than a soldier with 10 blades. We will not allow harm to come to her," Professor Dalton said. "She is a student and under our protection." Tharn's eyes narrowed. "Then let me speak to her. Alone, no fight, just words." After long discussion, they agreed. But it would happen under silent watch. In a quiet chamber, Claire sat across from Tharn. The room was bare, with only 2 chairs. Claire looked at him without fear. Tharn leaned forward. "You don't look strong," he said. "You don't speak much. But even my kind step away from you." "Why?" Claire answered. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I only want peace." "Yet you cause fear," Tharn said. "I cause nothing," she replied. "They feel something I cannot change." Tharn stood and walked slowly around her. She did not turn to follow him. "Not afraid of me?" he asked. "No," she said. He stepped closer. "Not even now?" She turned her head slightly. "Fear does not control me." At that moment, Tharn felt something strange. A cold feeling, like the silence before battle, like the breath before death. He stepped back. "You are like a mirror," he said. "You show us our fear." Claire stood. "I don't mean to, but I won't hide." Tharn nodded once. He left the room in silence. Later, he sent a private message to his people. "She is not a fighter. She is something else. Do not approach without care." The Academy Council met again. Some still wanted her removed. Others now felt respect. The vote ended in her favor. She would stay. Claire returned to class the next day. No one sat near her, but no one spoke against her either. The air around her was still heavy, but now it carried quiet respect. In a far corner of the galaxy, Marcus received another message. He smiled faintly. "She passed the next test," he said, "and more will come." At the Academy, Claire looked up at the stars again. She knew this was not the end. She knew others were watching. She would not run. She would not shout. She would stand, as always, in silence. Days passed after the meeting with Tharn. The Academy returned to its routine, but something had changed. Students moved more carefully. The halls were quieter. No one said Claire's name out loud, but everyone knew who she was. Instructors spoke to her with polite distance. Other students kept their space. Some tried to act normal, but their eyes always drifted toward her. Even when she was silent, she was present in every room. Professor Dalton watched from his office. He had been in the academy for 20 years. But never had he seen one student change the mood of an entire place without raising a hand or voice. One evening, he sent her a message. "Claire, meet me in the observatory at first light." The next morning, Claire arrived. The observatory was quiet, filled with stars above and soft lights below. Dalton stood by the main window, looking out. "You've done something impossible," he said as she entered.
And?
Claire stood beside him. "I only came here to learn." Dalton nodded. "But your presence has become more than learning. The academy is divided. Some fear you, some respect you, but none ignore you." Claire was silent for a moment. "Is that wrong?" "No," he said, "but it is powerful, and power often brings tests." She looked up at the stars. "More are coming." "Yes," Dalton replied. "And not all will speak first." Later that day, a new alert reached the academy. A message from the outer system said a rogue Dravik ship was heading toward the academy. This ship did not belong to Tharn's group. It was led by a fighter named Kor, known for ignoring peace laws. The academy moved into safety mode. Students were guided to secure zones. Defenses were activated. Still, many feared that words would not stop this visitor. The ship landed without warning. From it, Kor stepped out, covered in dark armor, his eyes burning red. He walked through the academy gates alone. Guards stood ready, but did not attack. He asked only one question. "Where is the Silent One?" Claire was brought to the center training hall. The room was empty except for her, Kor, and hidden watchers behind the walls. Kor stepped in. His boots struck the floor hard. Claire stood still at the far end. "I heard of you," he said. "You make warriors afraid. I came to see if that's true." Claire said nothing. Kor moved closer. "You won't speak? Fine, then I'll speak for you." He raised a sharp weapon from his side. It glowed red in the air. He took one step closer, and another. But at the third step, his legs stopped. His hand shook. The silence in the room grew deep. Claire had not moved. Her eyes stayed on him. Kor took another step, then fell to one knee. He dropped his weapon. His breathing grew rough. Sweat covered his face. He looked up. "What are you?" Claire answered. "I am what they made me. But I choose what I become." Kor crawled backward, then stood and left the room without another word. The watchers reported what they saw. The council met again that night. She stopped him with nothing but silence. One member said. "She must be protected," another replied. "If someone like her can end violence without force, she may be our strongest shield." Director Harrow sent a message to Earth. The Academy wished to keep Claire as part of its leadership circle. She had proven her power could bring peace without war. Back in her room, Claire sat at her desk. She opened a file from Earth. Inside was a message from Marcus. "You were not made to lead, but now you must. If they listen, teach them. If they fear, calm them. Use your silence well." Claire closed the file. She looked at her reflection in the glass. She had never shouted, never struck. But the world had changed around her. Outside her window, the stars were quiet. And the Academy, once loud and wild, had learned the meaning of stillness. The Academy was different now. Students no longer whispered about Claire behind her back. They no longer stared from a distance. They gave her space, but not out of fear. It was respect now. They had seen enough to understand she was not just another student. The council called her to the main chamber one morning. She walked through the long hall without hurry. Ow! The guards stepped aside. The leaders of many species sat at the high table. Director Harrow stood. "Claire, you have done something no one here could explain or predict. You've changed the way this academy works. You faced warriors without lifting a hand. You turned fear into silence." Claire waited. "We offer you a place," Harrow continued. "Not as a student, not as a soldier, but as a voice for peace. We want you to join the Galactic Peace Council. You will be the first student from this academy to do so." Claire looked around the room as the faces of the council members showed hope, doubt, curiosity, and respect. Let the silence speak for a moment. Then she said, "I will join, but I have one rule." "What is it?" asked one of the council members. "I will not lead with fear," she said. "My presence brings peace. I will use it, but never to rule." The council agreed. Her place was confirmed. News spread fast. Across the stars, leaders took notice. Some welcomed the idea, others were unsure. But all of them knew her name now. Not as a weapon, not as a threat, but as something new. Back at the academy, students prepared a quiet celebration. There were no loud parties or music, just calm lights in the sky and messages of thanks shared from all parts of the school. Lisa and Ethan met Claire in the garden, where she often sat. They brought her a simple plant from Earth. It was green and small, but strong. "We thought you'd like something from home," Ethan said. Claire took the plant and smiled just a little. "Phew." Lisa asked, "Will you stay here or go with the council?" "Both," Claire replied. "I'll speak where needed, but I'll return. This place taught me more than Earth ever could." Later, she stood in the center of the main training hall. Many students and teachers gathered, including the Virik and even Thawne from the Dravik. No one spoke at first. Then Tharn stepped forward. "You showed us something. We feared you. Now we understand. We'll teach our young not to fear silence." Claire nodded. That was enough. Professor Dalton approached her before she left for her first council meeting. "You were always more than a student," he said. Claire looked at him. "I was a question. Now I'm becoming an answer." He smiled. "Good luck, they'll listen to you. Maybe more than they know." The ship that took her to the council was small and quiet. No guards, no weapons, only her and the stars outside the window. She watched them pass. Galaxy was wide, full of noise, full of danger, but she carried something few others did. She did not need volume to be heard. She did not need power to stand strong. Her silence had shaped leaders, moved warriors, and changed minds. When she reached the council hall, she walked into the room where hundreds of voices had once clashed. Now they stopped as she entered. Her presence filled the space. She sat at the table. No words were spoken for a while. Then a voice asked, "What do you suggest, Claire?" She answered in a soft voice, "Let peace begin with quiet. Let fear end with understanding." And so it did. Back at the academy, students remembered her not as the girl who scared the predators, but as the one who taught them the power of stillness. They spoke her name with calm respect. The galaxy would not forget her. She had never raised her voice in class, but the universe listened.